Hey, this is Notser, and today we're doing Untitled. I'm back from vacation. I want to talk about that, but also I want to talk about the Naval Training Center. Huge development. I saw the beginning of it, but I did not see the end, and then I come back online because I went on a cruise, and completely different direction by Wargaming. On top of that, IFHE adjustments. It's a significant adjustment, so I wanted to touch on that. And then on top of that, Priority Air Defense Sector. This is an important adjustment to the sector system and one that I'm very happy for. But first, let's talk about the vacation. So I took a cruise, Carnival cruise, to the Bahamas for 3 days, and it was basically a ton of people drinking a lot of alcohol. It was just a party boat, and it was something I never needed to experience quite like that. I'm more like, when I go on vacation, I use it to relax and to recharge. I don't use it to get energy from a social environment and to just let myself go. That doesn't really give me anything that I can take back with me so that I can do my job better, but I could see how that helps other people. So it was a completely different experience than what I would have chosen, but it was an experience worth having. You know, I've never done it before. Oh, maybe a different cruise line would work better for me, but it was cool. I didn't expect the boat to be so artificial feeling. It's a giant boat, so it doesn't really rock with the waves. It's just stagnant, and it just doesn't move very much. But what it does do is it sort of does this very minor movement that you can feel when you're standing in certain areas of the ship, more so than others. But in general, it was interesting. It was different. You know, I had fun, but I don't know that I necessarily would choose to do it again. Sleep was in short supply. The announcements were so loud, plus people in the hallway. Basically, drunk people would stay out until 3, 4 in the morning. They would go down your hall. They would be really loud enough to wake you up. And then at the crack of dawn, like 7 or 8, there would be another announcement for an activity, and you couldn't ignore it. And that was really frustrating because for me, you're supposed to have a chance to sleep and relax on vacation. I just couldn't do that. But, that's how it worked out. Now, let's talk about all the crazy news that happened. So, the Naval Training Center. You've probably heard of it, and you probably hate it. The initial announcement I saw, because the CC's got an early release, knowing full well that you guys were getting it. And man, I literally would have stopped playing the game. I hate prestige, and I hate power. And both of those were tied into the initial version. If you don't know, the basic idea is every month you could regrind 3 of your ship lines, and the reward for that was going to be a chance to improve the power of one of your ships with stats. And it would be significant power, like 20, 30%. We're talking a tier 10 into a tier 12 or 13. And obviously pay to win, all that stuff. And you guys fought valiantly. I really appreciate it, because I couldn't say anything because I didn't even know all this was going on other than the initial release. And I was like, this is not going to be something that people want. Why would anyone want this? It causes you to have to grind more, and it also creates an imbalance in the game further beyond just like different tier ships, because certain ships would benefit way more from certain types of percentage buff increases than others, so it would throw off the balance even further. I'm so thankful they scrapped all of the power increase. Now we're getting a Naval Training Center where you still grind, you still can do it like 3 times a month, you still lose your ships, and I am not a prestige guy. When Modern Warfare came out, I saw it as a step back from a multiplayer standpoint, because I knew the implications. I knew it meant, oh great, here we go, here's more grind. And that's exactly what it is. I preferred Call of Duty 1 and Call of Duty 2. I am not into grind, just for the sake of grind. And that's exactly what Prestige is, and that's what Naval Training Center is going to end up being. Grind for the sake of grind, to, extend out the time that a player plays the game, which, all that's fair. I know systems like this, completely normal for any game. But just for me, personally, grinding and losing access to something feels awful. And I hated that in Call of Duty. I'm going to hate it in this game. But you know what, I'll do it because the rewards are pretty cool and interesting. And honestly, it's not that big of a deal to regrind some lines because some lines are always fun. You know, the experience from tier 1 all the way to tier 10 is awesome. So you might as well. And I do like that it doesn't have to be like the same line. You know, they could have easily locked it into like, oh, regrind your American heavy cruiser 3 times so that you can then upgrade the Des Moines. Yeah, no thank you. So I'm really happy that you guys fought to keep the power imbalance out of the game. Now we have to make sure that it lives up to those promises and doesn't fall back on pay to win and all that stuff. There's always a concern. You could still use free XP to grind through the lines. So as long as you collect free XP, you can invest it in that. So there's still an incentive for people to possibly spend a little money to speed it up the grind. But if the reward is just cosmetic and maybe side grade ships, I mean, who cares, right? That's on you to decide if that's worth it. So I'm really happy about the blowback from you guys. Really appreciate that. I did not want a system like that. I honestly still don't want a system that causes grind, but I'll accept that wargaming needs more things for people to do who have reached the peak. They've unlocked every line in the game, and there's nothing else literally nothing else for them to do. Now, let's talk about IFHE. IFHE being changed is a very big topic, and I was shocked by the lack of knowledge on this on my stream. So I guess it's just not a topic that people really cared about with the, the controversy of the Naval Training Center. But wargaming is in the early stages of a new IFHE system. They're adjusting IFHE to do the following. It provides 20% penetration instead of 30%, and then 50% reduction in fire chance instead of a 1 to 3% based on, the type of ship. So, holy crap, major nerfs to IFHE. And compensation for this, the 152s on the tier 8, 9, and 10 are getting an increased HE pin, so that with the lowered penetration, the 20% versus 30%, those light cruisers will still have effectively the same amount of pin, but they're losing 50% of their fire chance. So, a ship with 70% all of a sudden only has 9. That's a really big drop in fire chance. So even if you have the same percentage penetration, you're still going to just have way less fires than you would average. A huge nerf to light cruisers, a huge nerf to the Akizuki, the Shimakaze, the Harugumo, because they will not benefit from this increased pin threshold. Neither will the tier 7s, the tier 6, 152, 155. Bugioni, it's not going to get that 1/5 pin. It still is stuck with the 1/6 pin, so it's not going to be able to clear 32 at all, ever. That's a big change to the game, clearly, and it's a scary one. Plus, you're making a 4-point skill worse across the board. It's a trade-off, and I think this is how the skill should have been designed initially, but for 4 points now, man, is that tough to justify at that slot. Because it's one or the other now. You either have more pin or you set fires. You can't do both. But I don't know that you should punish people for expecting IFHE to be worth 4 points. I think you should honestly consider moving it down a tier to maybe tier 3-pointer or even a 2, just for the person to have that choice. Would you prefer greater fire damage or greater alpha from your high explosive? So I like that choice. I just don't know that it's a 4-pointer now. And obviously through testing, they'll realize this, and feedback will help that as well. Now, on top of that, there is a little bit of adjustment on how they classify pin. And this is going to be helpful to the Daring, the Jutland, and the Gorosaku First, just to name a few. Instead of less than, it's going to be less than or equal to. So basically, every high explosive shell is going to gain 1 millimeter of armor penetration. Now, there's some ships that have 31 millimeters. A good example is the GK's 128 millimeter secondaries. It can pin up to 31 millimeters right now. With this proposed change, it would be 32 millimeters. 32 millimeters is clearly the threshold to pin the bow and stern of battleships. So in that example, you do not need IFHE any longer. That's pretty awesome. The daring. It has 18 millimeters of effective pin. The reason people spec into IFHE is so you can penetrate the hull of equal tier DDs and lower tier. But with the equal to and less than, that pin of the 113 millimeter guns goes up to 19 millimeters. And now you can do full damage to pretty much all the DDs other than like the Cabas 50 millimeters and stuff like that. But that saves you 4 points that you can spend on other things, which will make the daring even more terrifying to face. Give it buffs, yes. But Harugabo, Kitakaze, Akizuki, the Belfast is getting nerfed because of tier 7. It won't get that 1/5 pin. It will just lose straight up penetration. So IFHE will not clear the 32 millimeter threshold. And it's a global change, so it's not something that is protected by the premium protection. Other ships like that, you know, the 127s of the Atlanta, the Flint, the secondaries of the Massachusetts and the Georgia, they're just going to lose penetration. And do they need compensation? That is the question we have to ask. But for some, it's a straight buff, and it saves you points that you can invest in other things. It's a good change for a lot of ships, and it also takes away the Henri's 50 millimeter penetration with IFHE. It is no longer capable of reaching that, ever. So it loses that shtick for competitive. Now, for competitive, you have to choose something like the Yoshino, which could clear 50 millimeters, the Hindenburg, which has the 1/4 pin baked in, or even the Stalingrad, which because of the equal to or less than change, can now penetrate 50 millimeters of armor with its high explosive, making battle cruisers just de facto IFHE built in. So I think Wargaming wanted to place all of these ships into different brackets and spread them out so that there's not so much overlapping on the penetration. And they have absolutely succeeded with all of that IFHE changes. It's just, do we really need this? Is it still worth 4 points? Do I feel like the ships that are getting nerfed, is it fair? Do I feel like the ships that are getting buff, is it fair as well? I don't know that the daring needed a buff, but I'll take it. So we'll see how this IFHE handles. And I'm honestly surprised that more people haven't read that article, because it is a very important article. On top of that, they're increasing the armor of the casemate on cruisers. Basically, active maneuvering against equal tier battleships will net you less overmatching capability. At tier 10, every cruiser will have 30 millimeters of casemate. Now, every cruiser does have 30 millimeters, except for the Salem, the Des Moines, and the Minotaur. They are receiving a buff, while all the other ones seemingly aren't receiving anything. So, a very interesting proposal. We'll see how it ends up being balanced. I'm in favor of it with some adjustment on the expense side of it, in my opinion. And on top of that, we're getting a change to Priority Air Defense Sector. It is going from its quirky weirdness where it creates a UI element on the screen and you have to mouse click, to one where you have a hotkey, whatever hotkey you might assign it to. And based on your camera position, it will activate an enhanced version of Priority Sector for a short duration. This Priority Sector has an upfront burst, so you want to make sure you use it basically when the aircraft enters into your aura, not before, because you'll lose that instant burst. And then over probably a set time, 10 to 15 seconds, you benefit from Priority Sector increasing in damage, effectiveness, and defensive capability. But then it goes on cooldown for another, 10 or 15 seconds. You lose that effectiveness, and then it's back up. They will be adjusting manual AA for this adjusted Priority Sector system. It's no longer going to be like enhanced percentage. It's going to enhance your instant damage, your duration, your reload. Basically, manual AA is mandatory if you want to be a god at anti-air. And that's good, because it's a 4-pointer. But that's a significant adjustment. So is the IFHE. Does this mean that we're going to get a commander respec? Because it sure sounds like it. It sure sounds like it over 1,000 times. Please give us a full commander respec. no questions asked. And I hope it's a full patch, because I don't know what's going to be worth investing in versus what isn't worth investing in. And when both of these come online, man, it's going to make a big change. We're going to see just a huge drop in fire, a huge drop on the helplessness that ships feel with their AA, that instant improvement. But it's also going to allow for a greater window to be punished if, for instance, the aircraft carrier recognizes that priority sector was used. It's got to go on cooldown now. So for that cooldown window, they could come back, retreat while the instant damage, because it will be obvious that your aircraft will take instant damage. Once you allow that to go through and you come back, well, then maybe you can punish the target. So I love the counterplay possibilities with the priority sector change. I love, honestly, the IFHE change. I just want to make sure it's worth the points invested. And I don't think 4 points is worth it after the change to the skill. On top of all those adjustments, premium consumables by default. Cool. They said basically 50% of the population doesn't use them, or all premium. I'm kind of surprised by that, but honestly not surprised. It's a good change. They're also going to be changing the matchmaker. There's going to be a protection so that no more than 40% of your games you are bottom tier. That's a very good change. I just don't know if it'll actually make live client and it'll be effective. I have to wait and see on that one, but I don't know anyone who's going to complain about that. They also are going to allow you to mute, finally, battle commands, those voice commands that people spam. You'll be able to mute that. It kind of should have been in the game, day one. It's only day, 1200. But, who's counting? Who's counting? Plenty of days have passed, and they haven't implemented it. So I'm excited for a lot of the proposed changes. I would like to be a little bit more refined before they make live client, but a lot of healthy steps forward, in my opinion. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of my content, you can click the most recent and the most relevant uploads. Also, you can choose to subscribe to my channel. We do daily World of Warship videos. First impressions, how-to, news related. This is my North American recruit invite if you would like to take advantage of that. I stream at twitch.tv/Notser. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.